Hey guys, Dave Keller here with Market Misbehavior. I gave a presentation earlier today to the STA, it's the Society of Technical Analysts based in London. The presentation was called The 5 Modes of Mindful Investors, and it was really focused on applying lessons of mindfulness and mindful living to your investing process and thinking about some of the ways that you can reflect on your strengths and weaknesses as an investor, have an awareness of what's happening around you as an investor, and approach your process, your routines with intention and with a proper focus. And the idea, the essence of mindfulness is having an awareness of what's going on around you, because I find many investors are sort of going with a more mindless approach, unaware of some of the best opportunities around them. So what does it mean to be a mindful investor? Well, for me, it's about having an awareness of what's going on around you. I always talk to clients about a situational awareness, which is a term from aviation. When you're flying in an airplane, to have an awareness of where your plane is and what's happening around you. Because if you don't have a good awareness of your surroundings, a lot of times you can get into trouble by flying into the clouds, getting too close to other airplanes, flying into the wrong airspace, flying into the ground, all those things which create some problems for you as a pilot. It's so funny though, as investors, we tend to miss some of the opportunities that are available to us because we have a limited or a non-existent market awareness. So a lot of what I do with clients is have them focus on their routines, focus on how they survey the investment landscape and make sure they're aware of what's happening. And I truly believe that charts, technical analysis are a beautiful way to help you focus on where the opportunities are, to focus on what's working and what isn't, and make sure that you are leaning away from things that aren't working and leaning into things that are working. But in particular, when I gave this presentation today to the STA, the Society of Technical Analysts, we talked about some of the different ways to be a more mindful investor. And a couple examples were having a realistic or a regular conversation with yourself, a meaningful and positive conversation with yourself, an honest conversation with yourself, focusing on what you do well and what you do poorly. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses as an investor? And to try to develop systems and processes to take advantage of your strengths and to address or compensate for your weaknesses is one particular area. We talked about having a regular review process, or a way to take stock of how you're doing as an investor and focus on how you can improve your process over the long term, over a series of periods. But in particular, I was asked in the Q&A section at the end what I did besides using checklists, which was one of the things we talked about as a way to systematically identify, sort of combine, take all the information that you are consuming and putting it into a legitimate form that you can understand, a digestible form. Besides that, what else do I do for mindfulness, for actually, living a more mindful life? And I thought about it, and I shared a couple things, and I realized with a video like this, I could actually show you what I'm doing. So here I am wedged on this comfy chair we actually bought when my daughter was a newborn. We needed a sort of a little rocking chair for her bedroom. I'm wedged between some craft toy equipment over here and lots of toys. We got bows and arrows and random things over there on the other side. But for me, this is right outside of my home office, and now that we're all working from home pretty much all the time, I have turned this little area into an oasis of mindfulness in my house. So what do I do to be more mindful? 3 things that I tell you. One thing that I shared on the video was writing what's called 3 pages. And basically the first thing I do after I get ready, get the cup of coffee, I sit down and I write 3 pages in a journal. And the idea of the 3 pages comes from a book called The Artist's Way, and there's another book called The Artist's Way at Work, which particularly talk about unleashing creativity and how to be a more creative, professional, creative person. And it was really, the original book, The Artist's Way, was designed to help creative people to unleash their creativity, so avoid writer's block and all those mental hurdles to being creative. And so the idea of the 3 pages was, with writing out 3 pages in a regular notebook, you basically get all of the stuff out of the way, and then you open the floodgates for creativity to come out. And I actually read The Artist's Way at Work first, and it was really helpful because it talks about that process and those techniques, but applying it as a in the workplace. Even if you don't work in a creative profession, which arguably I certainly do not, in the financial industry, there is so much opportunity if you can be more creative in what you do and how you go about your days and even routine tasks. Finding ways to be more creative, to think outside of the box, certainly has helped me a great deal in my career. So that is on there. Those books like that may be of interest. Go to my website, marketmisbehavior.com /reading list, I want to say, but there's a link at the top for the reading list that you can see those books and others that might be of interest to you. So that was one thing I talked about and answered the question was talking about journaling or writing the 3 pages. But 2 other things that I do in terms of how I actually try to be more mindful. The second thing is prayer and meditation. And basically, after I write in my journal, I come upstairs, or I'm either in my office writing or I'm downstairs outside on the deck or something. I'll come up to this chair, I'll sit down, and I'll pray and or meditate depending on what I'm led to do. And for me, the key for that, and regardless of of how you're using that time, the idea is that it's in a calm, meditative state. It's a time for reflection. It's a time to think about, now that I've sort of emptied all this stuff out of my brain, I find that is a perfect time to really focus on myself and focus on breathing, focus on my body, how I feel, what I'm seeing and hearing, and really just calming myself. Because if I just go, and you can tell what I'm trying to do is just start my day in a relative period of calm, a relative place of calm and intention, so that when I go and start looking at the markets and start looking at the charts and start thinking about my show coming up later in the day, I'm not completely flying from one task to the next in a mindless state. I want to be mindful and have an intention with that. So for me, prayer and or meditation right afterwards is really, really important. And then from there, I go into my office and start to get started, think about what I want to do with the day. And I find the days that I skip that because I feel like I don't have enough time for it, around 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, I really can tell the days when I've not meditated in the morning versus the ones that I have. Then the third thing that I shared that is important to me to live a more mindful life is getting some sort of exercise. And the time where I do it ideally is right after my show. So I host the Closing Bell Show on Stock Charts TV every day. We record that right at 1 p.m. Pacific time or 4 p.m. Eastern. So for me locally, it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I record the show. I start preparing around 12:30 for that. I'm done, and we kick off right at 1 o'clock. At 1:30, we wrap the show. I usually do some follow-up things until about 1:40, 1:45 or something. And from then, hopefully in an ideal situation, I am downstairs changing into bike riding clothes. I get my bike and start riding around the streets and the trails around the area here in Western Washington. If I don't do that today, for example, it was kind of rainy, so I wasn't really feeling it. So I went down and did a puzzle with my wife for a little bit. We talked about things coming up this weekend. We got a trip coming up. Sometimes I'll go check in with my kids and play with them outside. Sometimes I'll do some sort of other workout, push-ups or something like that, whatever it is that I'm figuring out a way to do. But the idea is to do something away from the markets and away from finance and away from tasks. A lot of times I'm tempted after my show to just plow right into something else productive. Writing an article, calling people, responding to emails, researching something. And I have always found, even though that checks something off the task list, and from a mental perspective, I am not in a great place after that because I'm just exhausted. I'm totally done. So I found there's that time right after my show when I've put out a lot of effort and I need a break. I need a mental break. For me, some sort of fitness is ideal. And again, riding my bike is the best way to do it. But something else like that is helpful. Honestly, I think I could do a lot better with that. We've talked with my wife about doing yoga together and again, taking advantage of the fact that we are working from home for the most part every day now. So those are the 3 things that I do to try and live a more mindful life. Number 1, 3 pages every morning. Number 2, prayer and or meditation in the morning as well. And number 3, after an intense period of focus, which for me is my show right after lunch around 1 o'clock, do something completely the opposite. Do something unfocused. Give your brain a chance to reset. So what I would encourage and what I ask all of you to do is encourage you to think about your day and how you're spending your time, and what you could do to upgrade the more mindful way that you could live. What could you do to increase your mindfulness and get away from things that are mindless? There are plenty of unhealthy ways to deal with stress and deal with anxiety and try to be more calm, involving substances and others. As much as I can encourage you to steer away from those, I'll do it because, again, I found things that are more mindful, more intentional, more aware. In the end, it's made life a lot happier for me. So I hope this helps. I encourage you to do your own explanation. I'd love to hear from you in the comments what you've tried, what you've experimented with, and what has worked for you. And check out some of the other videos on my Market Misbehavior channel. Thanks so much.